For decades, fans believed they knew everything about Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, two icons whose names became synonymous with martial arts itself. One, the lightning-fast philosopher who changed the world's view of combat. The other, the American powerhouse who turned discipline into dominance. Together, they created one of the greatest moments in movie history. But here's the twist. Chuck Norris recently spoke out, revealing something about Bruce that almost no one expected. It wasn't about rivalry or fame or who would win in a fight. It was something deeper, something that made even die-hard fans question what really happened between them behind the cameras. So what exactly did Chuck Norris say about Bruce Lee after all these years? And why has it left martial arts fans stunned even now, half a century later? Before we dive into what Chuck revealed, let's rewind to the beginning, to the two men who started as complete opposites and ended up changing martial arts forever. Two legends, one era. When it comes to martial arts legends, there are names, and then there are forces of nature. Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris weren't just fighters, they were movements. Both born in 1940, worlds apart, yet destined to collide in a way that would rewrite martial arts history. Bruce Lee was speed and precision, a man who could strike faster than the blink of an eye, but whose real weapon was his mind. He studied philosophy, questioned tradition, and built a fighting style that broke every rule. He wasn't just teaching people how to fight, he was teaching them how to think. Chuck Norris, on the other hand, came from the opposite end of the spectrum. A quiet kid from Oklahoma, shy and uncertain, who found strength in discipline. Through the Air Force, he discovered Tang Soo Do in Korea, and something inside him switched on. Within a few short years, the same man who once doubted himself was dominating world karate tournaments and building dojos across America. If Bruce Lee was philosophy in motion, Chuck Norris was power perfected. By the late 1960s, their worlds were orbiting closer. Lee was becoming a television sensation on the Green Hornet, the first time many Americans ever saw real martial arts speed on screen. Meanwhile, Norris was climbing the ranks of full-contact karate, earning titles and respect from every corner of the fighting world. Two men, two paths, both breaking barriers in completely different ways. But fate had plans of its own. And soon, those two unstoppable paths were about to cross, not as rivals, but as students of each other's greatness. The rise of Chuck Norris. Before he became a Hollywood powerhouse or a global meme, Chuck Norris was just Carlos Ray, a shy kid who didn't believe he had what it took to stand out. He wasn't the loudest in the room or the strongest. He was the kid who avoided fights, the one who stayed quiet while chaos happened around him. But life has a strange way of finding the people it wants to test. When Chuck joined the U.S. Air Force in 1958, he didn't know that a deployment to South Korea would change his life forever. There, on a dusty training ground near Osan Air Base, he discovered Tang Soo Do, a traditional Korean martial art built on balance, power, and control. For the first time in his life, Chuck found something that demanded everything from him and gave him something back. He trained relentlessly. Early mornings, late nights, bruised knuckles, torn uniforms, he didn't care. By the time he returned home, he wasn't the same man who'd left. He carried a new confidence, and with it, a dream, to teach what martial arts had given him. He opened his first karate studio in California, but success didn't come easy. He lost his first two tournaments, faced ridicule, and nearly gave up. But then something clicked. By 1967, Chuck wasn't just competing, he was dominating. He tore through tournament brackets, beating seasoned champions and earning a reputation as a fighter who simply refused to quit. Soon, he became the professional middleweight karate champion of the world, a title he held for 6 straight years. But fame wasn't what drove him. It was respect. And that pursuit of mastery, of discipline, of purpose, would soon lead him to cross paths with another man chasing the same ideal, a man named Bruce Lee. How Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris met it didn't happen on a movie set. It didn't start with contracts, cameras, or fame. It began in a place far more real, a karate tournament in the late 1960s, where the air buzzed with adrenaline and competition. Chuck Norris was already a rising star in the American martial arts scene, known for his iron discipline and laser focus. Bruce Lee at the time wasn't yet the global icon he'd become, but anyone who saw him move knew he was something special. He wasn't just fast, he was different. His energy filled a room before he even spoke. That day, two worlds collided. One man represented the tradition of the East, the other, the power and structure of the West. And yet, instead of clashing, they connected. After that tournament, Lee approached Chuck with genuine curiosity. He admired Chuck's control and precision, traits rare even among top fighters. Chuck, in turn, was fascinated by Bruce's philosophy. He'd never met anyone who could think about fighting the way Bruce did, who treated it like an art, a science, and a personal journey all at once. They began training together, not in a flashy gym, but in Chuck's own backyard. Two masters pushing each other to limits no one else could reach. They sparred, exchanged ideas, tested theories. Sometimes, the sessions got intense. Fast punches, sharp kicks, no ego, no audience. Just two men obsessed with getting better. Over time, what started as curiosity became friendship. They weren't trying to outdo each other, they were trying to understand each other. Bruce taught Chuck about flow, rhythm, and adaptability. Chuck helped Bruce refine his timing and conditioning. And then, one phone call changed everything. It was 1972. Bruce was in Hong Kong at the peak of his fame, directing a new film called The Way of the Dragon. He needed someone special, someone real, to face him on screen. He didn't want an actor. He wanted Chuck Norris. The Colosseum fight. The battle that changed everything. When Bruce Lee called Chuck Norris in 1972, it wasn't just for a movie. It was for history. The Way of the Dragon would become one of the most iconic martial arts films ever made, and its final scene, pure legend. Picture it. Rome's ancient Colosseum. Two warriors, no stunt doubles, no wires, no gimmicks. Just raw skill captured in one of the most intense fights ever filmed. What most fans don't know is how risky it was. Bruce didn't have official permission to shoot there, so he bribed guards and filmed under pressure, racing the clock to finish before they were caught. Every move had to be perfect. There were no second takes. For nearly 10 straight minutes, Bruce and Chuck fought with real contact, each strike landing harder than the last. Chuck's strength met Bruce's speed in a perfect storm of motion and precision. When Bruce's character finally won, audiences weren't just watching a fight, they were watching two real-life masters testing each other's limits. And then came the moment fans still talk about, when Bruce grabs a handful of Chuck's chest hair and rips it out. Years later, Chuck laughed about it in an interview. A fan once wrote to him asking if it really happened. Chuck said it did. And the guy called him a legend for it. That single fight scene broke every rule in filmmaking. No tricks, no fakes. Just respect, sweat, and two men making cinematic history. But behind all that intensity, people started to wonder, were Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris really friends? Or was there something deeper behind those punches? The truth about their friendship and rivalry. After The Way of the Dragon hit theaters, the world couldn't stop talking about Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. The fight was so intense, so believable, that fans became convinced the two men were rivals in real life. Stories spread fast, rumors of a secret full-contact match, whispers that Bruce and Chuck had tested each other behind closed doors. But according to Chuck Norris himself, none of that ever happened. He's been asked for decades if they fought for real, and every time his answer's the same: no. There was never a winner or loser between them because there was never a fight. What there was respect. In interviews, Chuck described their time together not as competition, but collaboration. They trained, sparred lightly, and constantly traded ideas, each trying to improve, never to prove. Chuck often said that Bruce's speed was unlike anything he'd ever seen. He once joked that sparring with Bruce felt like fighting a shadow that hit back. As for Bruce, he admired Chuck's discipline and precision. He even referred to Chuck as one of the few real fighters in Hollywood. There was no bad blood, only mutual admiration. Still, the idea of a hidden rivalry refuses to die. Maybe it's because their on-screen fight felt too real. Maybe it's because legends like these grow on mystery. Whatever the reason, fans have kept debating it for 50 years, turning their friendship into one of martial arts' most enduring myths. And through it all, Chuck never once disrespected Bruce's legacy. If anything, every time he speaks about Bruce Lee, his voice carries something deeper, a quiet kind of gratitude. What Chuck Norris revealed about Bruce Lee. After decades of silence, Chuck Norris finally opened up about Bruce Lee, and what he said caught everyone off guard. Because instead of feeding into the rivalry that fans loved to imagine, Chuck revealed something far more powerful. In interviews and fan events, Norris described Bruce not just as a fighter, but as a force of nature. He said Bruce's presence was magnetic, that when he entered a room, everyone stopped talking. He had this energy, Chuck explained, this confidence that wasn't arrogance. You just knew you were in the presence of someone different. But what truly shocked fans was how deeply personal Chuck's words were. He admitted that Bruce Lee had changed the entire direction of his life. It was Bruce who opened the door to film for him, inviting him into the Way of the Dragon and unknowingly launching Chuck's movie career. Chuck called it a blessing and said that every success he had afterward began with that one opportunity Bruce gave him. Even more surprising, Norris spoke about the man behind the legend. He said Bruce wasn't obsessed with being famous. He was obsessed with being better. Every conversation they had was about learning, improving, or pushing human potential. Chuck said, Bruce believed the mind was the most powerful weapon. Once you controlled that, your body would follow. And when asked about Bruce's passing, Chuck's voice softened. He said it still hurts, that Bruce's death at just 32 felt like losing a brother. He described how he still watches The Way of the Dragon from time to time, not to see himself, but to see his friend again. In a world that often pits icons against each other, Chuck Norris did the opposite. He honored Bruce Lee, not as a rival, but as the man who helped him become who he is today. The legacy they left behind. Time moves fast. Decades have passed since Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris shared that legendary scene in the Colosseum, yet somehow it still feels alive. You can watch it today and feel the same intensity, the same respect, the same fire that made two men from opposite worlds become timeless icons.